Hello and welcome back to the My Journey podcast with me, Matt Johnson. Unfortunately, due to the social distancing of coronavirus, it's just me on my own this week. Hopefully we'll be back with Tom as soon as we can be, but we just thought the risk wasn't really worth it at the moment. So it's just me on my own again. So yeah, what have I been up to recently since we last spoke? We've seen Creative Point come back to Hull, which has been really good. And we're actually talking a lot about community at the time, which in hindsight was a really good topic to be discussing because at the moment people are talking a lot more about community and what we can do for each other. But this was all in respect to building a brand online. These people had come, 3 speakers had come along to be interviewed about the different ways they've used community online to build their respective brands. We heard from Dom Smith, who's built brands around the music scene and disability, Jenny Gilmore, who's built an online community around domestic abuse, and finally we had Ryan Cole, who's an animator, who's actually used an existing community on Reddit to build his brand and actually generate some work from that. It was really interesting. There is a blog post about that on the Creative Point website if you want to go check that out. And then myself, aside from the projects to do with other people, I headed back to Leeds recently to deliver a social media strategy workshop to help small businesses grow their brand through social media. This was the first time I'd actually publicly used my strategy acronym ROPE. I'll hopefully go into this more detail in a future episode. I'm still softening off a few edges with it and things like that, but it's had some really good responses so far. I even showed it to my old university tutor and he was quite impressed by it. But after that, we were obviously hit by the coronavirus. So I am now practicing social distancing, whatever that might mean to you. For me, that means making sure I stay inside as much as I can. I can work from home. I'm part of a co-working space, so to work from home for me wasn't a big issue. I've done it before, and before I joined the co-working space, and I'll do it for as long as it's needed. But how do I deliver the service that I currently deliver to the same standard? Basically, for me, it just means that I won't be doing as many face-to-face meetings, which is a real shame because that's how I generate a lot of my business. I had an event on Thursday, which was planned to be in, but it just didn't happen because of the coronavirus. We thought it was best to cancel it earlier in the week. Now that would have been a lead generation tool for me, but unfortunately, I have to miss out on that opportunity. Hopefully, having spoken to most of the businesses I work with at the moment in some depth, they are all carrying on as best as they can at these times, and it shouldn't really affect what I do for them too much. But we wait to see, because these times like this, whether it's the virus itself or the economic impact, will have a knock-on effect to other people. I personally can keep operating, I can keep doing what I'm doing. But if the businesses I'm working with can't, then that's something I'm going to have to deal with. So fingers crossed, we are prepared for it. We are ready for it. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but I would like to think I can keep all of my clients. They seem like that's their intentions too. So we'll see where this goes, but it's uncertain times for everybody working in business at the moment. And I really do feel for the people out there who have been hit directly from it, especially those in the hospitality sector. But it has brought me to think about some of the different stuff that I'm doing. Recently, there was a bit of a discussion on the forum that I use at the co-working space about how do people work from home. And it's quite interesting because I have worked from home previously when I first started up freelancing and in interim periods in between. There's a lot of people who work in offices that aren't used to working at home, or even if they have, it's only for a morning or an afternoon or maybe even a day, but not for extended periods of time as we're expecting to do so with this outbreak. So I wrote a blog piece all about how to work from home. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I'm going to cover that in today's podcast. I just thought there's not much else to talk about, so try and impart some wisdom on you guys, the listeners. So this is my freelancer's guide to working from home. Obviously, we all heard the announcement from the Prime Minister which said everyone should work from home if they can, and some people are still unable to do that. But it has changed the way that a lot of people seem to be working. Some people were overjoyed at the idea of getting out of the office, and others were fearful of how they could complete their jobs, which was totally understandable. But there was one group of people fully prepared for the challenge ahead, and that was us, the freelancers. For years we've been mocked about our working from home lifestyle, but now is our time to shine. Or so it feels that way. Questions have been flying in from all over the place, from old uni friends, ex-colleagues, and just people on LinkedIn. How do you remain productive at home? Is there any equipment we need? How do you structure your day? Now, I'll confess, I'm no expert on this topic, but like many other freelancers, I do have experience of working from home, as I mentioned. And some of these have been for extended periods of times. So here are my top tips for working from home. Number 1, appreciate the differences. The first thing to do is to accept that working from home is nothing, and I repeat, nothing like working in an office. Some people preach about adding routine and structure, things that are familiar within the office environment. And these are important aspects, but there is something different about working from home, no matter how much you try to replicate the office. The sooner you appreciate this, the sooner you'll be more productive. The second tip is to get out of the office. When you're at work, you've already had a change of scenery going from home to the office. But when the office becomes home, the same 4 walls keep you penned in for the whole day. If you're able to, make time for lunch and get outside, or at least into another room. I currently work at the dining room table, and we don't have an office desk in the house. I work at the dining room table, and I will try and sit at the breakfast bar or move across to the seating in the living room and watch a little bit of telly while I'm on my lunch. The next tip is to plan out the day. Just like at work, you will have distractions at home, but they do come in different guises. The TV, the fridge, laundry basket, books, kids, neighbours, you name it, it'll be sent to test you during your working from home phase. If you try and plan out your day at the start, then there's an element of accountability there which will help you keep focused. That element of structure can really help people succeed when they're working from home. The next tip, speak to people. The worst thing about working from home, in my opinion, especially if you live on your own or others are out at work, is not speaking to other human beings. You miss the water cooler chat and bumping into people in reception, so make sure to get on the phone to someone at least once a day. Even if it is just a call with a client, there'll still be a bit of small talk there that will keep you sane. It cannot stress this enough. Sitting at home on your own, hearing your own thoughts ticking over or listening to music, nothing compares to just speaking to someone verbally as well, not over text or email. And finally, work-life balance, that old chestnut. If you thought it was hard to find this thing when you're working from an office, wait until home office life kicks in. The lines become blurred and the mental separation is reduced. If you can, keep your office in a separate area to your living space. Like I say, I work at the dining room table and I chill in the living room space. And make sure to stop working at normal time. It's very easy when you're working from home to push the boundaries of what your working day is. And at the other end, get up at a reasonable time and try and crack on as you would if you're at work. It is going to be tough working from home. Us freelancers never claimed that avoiding Netflix all day was an easy task. But as many of us have before, we have failed. And many of you will fail going forwards, unfortunately. But if you try your best, embrace the challenges, and follow these top tips, you might just keep your boss happy while you're working from home. Now, I know these aren't extensive tips, these maybe aren't the practical tips that everyone was hoping for, the wonders of working from home, but they're my experience, and hopefully that will work for you. So that's all I've got on the sides of working from home, but there's also another announcement I was going to make on this very short episode of the My Journey podcast. I am creating a newsletter, the MJ Social newsletter. This will include updates about what I've been up to, maybe a few features for the podcast, my blog, and I'll also be including there industry news and top tips for social media. So if you're looking to take your social media to the next level, but just want some inspiration in your inbox, then make sure to check that out. Finally, on, as I say, this very short episode of the My Journey podcast, make sure if there's a topic you want covering on here to let me know, as myself and Tom have set up a Google Sheets document which includes topics we'll be covering in future episodes, but we can add your suggestions to this document. I'm just getting it up now so I can enlighten you with some of the topics we've added already, but it's not seeming to load, so we'll have to leave that there. But it's going to be things about the difference between work life and freelancer life, because obviously Tom works for an employer, and how I've found my journey in freelancing, co-working spaces, all these different kind of topics. So if there's anything relating to business, entrepreneurship, freelancing, or work life, then make sure to drop it in to us via my social media channels, which are at the MJ Social on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So yeah, if you've got any topics you want covering on this podcast, make sure to let me know via those channels. And I think that's everything for today's episode of the My Journey podcast. It's in complete contrast to the last one, which went on for almost an hour. It's much shorter than the usual half an hour that me and Tom have been aiming for, but that's the way it is. Hopefully you've enjoyed listening to this short episode of the My Journey podcast. And as ever, if you have any feedback, please do let me know. But until next time, thanks for listening.